Boom. I think we're live on YouTube for the time being. We are surviving on YouTube, weirdly enough. Couple strikes, but we'll keep streaming on YouTube while we still can. But let me remind you guys, you can catch the Union of the Unwanted every other Monday live. The timing has changed slightly from week to week because of just everybody's schedule and practices. I've been coaching basketball and it's been conflicting and whatnot. So, but definitely every other Monday we'll be live, and then within 48 hours the audio and video will be available just about everywhere. So definitely check that out and go to the unionoftheunwanted.com to find all our links and much more. You can get merch, you can find all our socials and all that stuff. And then every other Monday what we're doing is we're releasing a reunion flashback show, which is just a old classic that we're kind of throwing on the RSS feed because we constantly get new listeners, and there's tons of just great episodes we've done in the past, especially during COVID. Sometimes it's fun to go back and listen to like where we were mentally and our perspectives during that whole thing. So and we've had some just amazing guests like Roseanne Barr and many others throughout the years. So definitely check that out. And then I think that's it for the business. Let's get right into what do you guys want to talk about? I'm curious on what I wanted to jump in on, because really these shows, the best part about these shows is I really just have to throw a bone out there. And then once we get going, there's no need for a host. The show kind of takes a life of its own. But I was curious on, because I know we have some different opinions on the show, and throughout the up to the election, we've had some conflicting opinions on Trump. Is he gonna, is he selling more than he can give us? Is he BSing us? Is he actually gonna follow through with some of his stuff? There's been some positive things, like removing the security detail on Fauci, giving military people who lost their jobs because they didn't want the mandated vaccine, giving them back pay and giving their jobs back. Obviously, freeing Ross. Quite a few things, but I'm curious if that's not enough for some of you guys. If you think that like, hey, we're still being sold, bullshit or whatever.
Can
Or
I say something before Jason takes it?
Jason's ready. Jason just hammered
I,
down a Red
I,
Bull and is ready to let
I,
loose.
I want to, and I've said this in another podcast, I want to cite the Hope experiment in 1957 when they took the rodents and they drowned them and then they put them on land, and they don't go 1 or 2 or 3 or 10 hours. They go another 60 hours, which is akin to the next 4 years of the golden age where they can throw us some bones, but do not be fooled. The transhumanist agenda, Great Reset 2030, is the eye on the prize, and Pluto getting out of Capricorn in this new dawn of Aquarius that's literally these overlords have been waiting for a long time. So that's what I have to say.
I guess I'll jump in quick. At first, I just want to start with the fact that the last video that got taken down from YouTube for me, which was probably like a month ago, Union of the Unwanted, congratulations, Ricky. And it was the Dell Bigtree episode. So they're still censoring. Currently, I am trying to remonetize on there. I've heard Jay Dyer was able to remonetize. I'm not holding my breath. Something we should also talk about. I know we're probably also streaming on Rockfin. The Ray token has hit an all-time low since the first year of that project. It's down to 50 cents. That's not a good look when so much of crypto is exploding. I'm just saying that.
I didn't know it was. I was just talking about the Ray token. I didn't know that it plummeted. What's the reason?
Well, I mean, I'm not trying to throw any shade their way, but
Oh.
we've been at like 6+ years, and how much growth is there? In fact, no, there's been kind of a recession on the amount of people that are watching. Obviously, there's a price increase there. When you look at other apps that have come to the forefront and platforms, they're better. And let's just be honest, Rumble has billionaires behind it, including Peter Thiel. None of these are meritocracies. In fact, I did a video just the other day talking to Grok, not only about YouTube being a military industrial complex company via Google and their DoD, NASA contracts, artificial intelligence, quantum computing amongst them, where it just listed down the line and agreed with me all the way. But it even admitted itself, X is not a meritocracy. They pick winners and losers. They have algorithms. That's not going to change. And you know what? That's one of the hopium points, because all those things you said were great, Ricky. And I'm not, listen, I'm almost in. If you threw 9/11 on top of it, I'd probably still be doing cartwheels. Like, I am very happy with a lot of this administration. But let me tell you two things that don't track and they don't make sense. And I don't know what they mean as executive orders right out of the gates before we even get into the technocracy that's being pushed. One, we're going to end government censorship. That's not real. How is that? We haven't even addressed signature reduction as a program for over a decade, where the military is embedded in the biggest companies in the United States and have full access. That's part of narrative management. We know that they're not dismantling fusion centers. We know many of these are incorporated into private organizations. It's great you took away Michael Hayden's security clearance. He's a part of NewsGuard. He's a part of that apparatus. But there's so much more. So I don't understand what that executive order means. And then the next one that really perplexes me is the one on the cartels. Okay, so the CIA obviously ran drugs in the 80s via the cartels. Iran-Contra is a real thing. Barry Seal is a real guy. Even Escobar's kid is now saying Escobar was Central Intelligence Agency. So is the CIA a terrorist organization? Let's take another step further. You'll do the same thing in Afghanistan, where pre 9/11, the Taliban had basically crushed the opium market. And then we go in and our soldiers are literally protecting the opium fields, and it goes up 900+% over the next 2 decades. Okay, so again, what cartels are terrorists? And then just to kind of push forward into the bigger picture, the tokenization of everything is moving forward. AI-driven data centers are a real announced thing. In fact, there's a story just within the last couple hours of the new Manhattan Project. But just yesterday, Zuckerberg, with his newly anointed gold medallion necklace and wacky hair, because he's a bro now, announced data centers. And you know what? Let's just pull it up really quickly, because I think I do still have it up over here. That's the real Anthony Fauci. 1 second, guys. So they're building data centers as large as almost Lower Manhattan.
Wow.
Okay.
Where?
So the very first one, well, what they're going to do is they're going to put it on the outskirts of big cities. Let's get here. Here we go. So you can see just how enormous this is. Let's just click it. So there's Lower Manhattan, and that purple area is the first $60 to $65 billion complex size that they're going to build of these data centers.
Wow.
Okay, I mean, if you've been in New York City, you've been on a city block, take a look how many that's taken up.
Right. Yeah.
Those are going to be powered by these new mini nuclear plants that they're going to go around regulations. And look, I'm all for nuclear energy. I think that the new generations of nuclear energy are going to be very good, but I don't think that they're going to use it to empower the general populace. I think they're going to use it for the energy it's going to be necessary to run these large language models and then take in all the this data. And it's not just going to be Meta, it's going to be Google, it's going to be Amazon, and everybody else that has these defense contracts. I've ranted long enough, and I will defer.
I would like to say something in regards to the cartels. So in my upcoming George Floyd book, it's really about it's really about money laundering and drug trafficking and the fentanyl. And so the informant, the FBI informant / Mexican cartel leader that's with La M, who shanked Derek, he said that the code of honor in the cartels is not to kill innocent people. While I was doing the research, which it might seem naive, I was like, I wonder if the government is using the cartels as a cover. And it so happened that at the time, there was a professor out of Mexico that was translating his book from Spanish, where it's called Los carteles no existar, the cartels don't exist. And the way in which the cartels are run now, it's all decentralized, and they use these low level like George Floyd's to peddle drugs. But the point is that the government is very much using the cartels as a cover.
I guess what I would say on that is that, you know, I totally get what you're saying, but I think there is a possibility that cheap energy, like they've just blown right over all the net zero bullshit. They don't give a shit about any of that. So, for people like us in Canada, they're paying $100, $200, $300 a month in carbon tax for this fictitious fucking problem. Like, there's going to be cheap, I think. I mean, and they're saying it out loud, whether I believe them or not, I don't know, but they're saying that this is going to help with cheap energy for people, right? So I know it's not, it's hard to say it's going to go that way, but at least they're sort of blowing through the bullshit that we've been through for the last 10, 15, 20 years as far as energy goes. So I'm hoping for, better energy and cheaper energy. I think that's at least that's a start towards that.
That's another thing that reminds me. He's putting an end to the electric car requirements. You know how a lot of these states and a lot of these places are requiring everybody to go to electric, which I think actually kind of shows that, maybe he does think a little bit for himself sometimes because he's, well, his closest buddy has been Elon Musk, who would have huge benefit in pushing these electric car, requirements. So like that kind of, for
Well,
me, that either causes a little bit of thinking of like possibly like, hey, maybe he is looking at each policy as like, how does it benefit, America and not just his buddies.
I think of the scene Leave the World Behind, where they can just stop all the cars at will. And so
Yep.
make it easier to get the electric car. Do you think there's a point in that? What do you guys think?
No, but what I'm saying is he's making it so a lot of these states are forcing, like I live in Massachusetts, they have like some 2030 bill where like you can't sell any, and this thing keeps getting pushed back and back, but they're trying to implement these laws where they can basically remove even your option to purchase a petroleum powered car. And so, so they like in Massachusetts, the dickhead we have here as a governor, he end up pushing this, saying that by 2030 you can't sell any petroleum vehicles, and it's like we don't even have the infrastructure for that. There's no, obviously it's not convenient to do that for most people. Traveling to work,
In the
repairs,
cold.
yeah. I mean, and then all the mom and pop mechanics, like there's just tons of issues with this, but they're pushing it. So for Trump to be so close to Elon, because you figure like letting this momentum of force feeding people electric cars would help Elon because I mean Tesla is one of the most popular electric cars out there. So it seems like, like what do you guys think?
The
What's your
way I
opinion?
see it is that they introduced this topic to start normalizing it because it's all about incrementalism and it's the beginning and it's also a barometer of like who's going to fight, who's going to stand, who like is anyone paying attention? Do they want their petroleum cars? I mean, that's my thoughts. And I mean, and let's not forget not so long ago the episode where Elon is like banning Trump and now they're BFFs.
Well, then there was the whole Stargate thing, right? Where it's like Elon's not a big fan of that. And it's like, obviously myself and my crew, we were freaking out about that. Like Tuesday, Wednesday, we're like, bro, really? AI mRNA vaccines? Like I did a whole freaking rant episode on it. But it's like, but then the really interesting development to that whole story was the release of the Deep Seek, right? The Deep Seek AI out of China that basically exposed all of these guys, the open AI and all these things for what they are. Like, you don't need these hundreds of billions of dollars of data centers. You know what I mean? Technically, maybe. I mean, I've done a cursory examination into it, but then it's like, so first of all, you don't need all that money. It's just like this whole $500 billion thing is like a money laundering operation. You don't need
Totally.
that and to have something that's, robust and they just gave it to the world for free and open source. So it basically just collapsed the whole like AI market. And so and then Elon obviously is in the AI realm as well. So like that kind of takes a stab at him. But then this whole Stargate thing was just kind of just the rug was pulled out from underneath it by China. And I'm like, go China, dude. Hell yeah. Anyway, but it's just kind of crazy how that came right on the back of this big Stargate announcement. You know what I mean?
Also think of all the names, right? Oracle and Stargate. It's
Yeah.
very Dawn of Aquarius. It's very transhumanist. Like, soon they're going to tell us that there's UFOs, which you could argue is like just covering up the fact that we've been invaded by for a long time. If you believe in the Archon narrative.
It also gets rid of Stargate in the Google searches, like the real Stargate. So
That's a good point.
So there were several things that you just mentioned, Scott, that I just wanted to hit on really quick. First thing, as far as Stargate, mRNA shots, Larry Ellison, even Sam Altman kind of getting into the mix. Because one of the things you just kind of mentioned with the AI release, a lot of people don't realize NVIDIA took a huge dump today.
Yep. I was telling people, buy NVIDIA right now, dude.
I mean, listen, I think it's going to go back up, but just kind of like you just explored, the sell to most of us on this AI is that you constantly have to be connected for it to work. In other words, like the commercial stuff, because I have plenty of NVIDIA graphics cards. And for instance, on Windows, you can download a version of Copilot that will run locally, but it doesn't have all the features, right? And they just say, we don't have the computing power. This release from China, although they do want you hooked in, is showing you don't necessarily need that. Now, when you go to the Stargate program, there is a ton of alarming things even before that. Just so everybody knows, HHS on the 21st, so right when Trump was getting in there, gave $590 million to Moderna to accelerate the bird flu vaccine, which of course is going to be mRNA based.
Right.
Now, on top of that, Gates is talking about money for HIV vaccines. We've seen him. He said he had that several-hour meeting. He's had the Global Fund forever. Gates is on record saying that that is his best investment via vaccines in his foundation, over 20-1, 10 billion, 20 years, or over a 20-year period made him 200 plus. The Global Fund, according to Joe Biden, when he had that dementia freak out, remember everybody was like, when he was going, and he was looking at everybody, they forgot to show you what he actually said. It's a 30-1 return. Okay. Yeah. So just to kind of end on what Ellison said about mRNA and one of the reasons we should be very skeptical about all of it. Yeah. When you look at the launch of the Moderna and DARPA partnership for $25 million via mRNA gene therapy that is on their own website, okay? It is a part of the ADEPT and PROTECT program. And in it, they talk about sequencing either a natural virus or a biological virus that has created a bioweapon, and then within 48 hours, writing to that platform and developing that vaccine. They didn't even call it a vaccine. We're now calling it vaccines. I don't even want to do that, right? But that's like the vernacular now. So it's wild. But that also incorporates, I mean, you look at what we got mRNA first round, not great. Okay. And then you also look what was being worked on prior to this Stargate announcement. And again, you have DARPA, Moderna, everybody's making money, is Cancer Moonshot that was doing the same exact thing and selling you on the same exact thing. So look, genetic sequencing is real, but once you do that, what you're doing is you're inviting really that transition. You talked about transhumanism from the Internet of Things, which we are literally immersed in as a westernized society, into the Internet of Bodies, which unfortunately many people are already taking part in. You know, this one went under the radar, but drugs like Abilify, Elon again, and I'm no Musk fan, just asked why SSR drugs are taken in America so extensively. We outweigh everybody by far.
Right.
Abilify is the drug that you take when you're on a bunch of SSRIs and they don't work. And so what's really scary about Abilify that people don't understand is they always talk about sensor technology and how if you're going to have a heart attack, you got to take your heart medicine, you got dementia. This lets the doctor know that you're in compliance, that you have taken your medication. Right. Well, Abilify, the psychotropic drug for when your other psychotropic drugs aren't enough, have MyCite technology in them. That's MyCite, which is a dissolvable Bluetooth sensor. Right. So that lets you know if you didn't take it, if the sensor doesn't go off, takey. And they're doing that with psychotropic drugs now. I mean, if that isn't Internet of
the world,
yeah, I don't know what is. I'll shut up.
I think the thing that disturbed me the most was their unawareness about like why, how they were even using the vaccine word. Like, are you kidding me? You
Right.
don't need to sell people on why we need an AI infrastructure. Just say you're going to invest 500 billion in an AI infrastructure and leave all that other garble out. Like, to me, that just showed how they can't read the room at all. They don't
What
realize how that's going to blow up against them. Like, you're going to
that's
continue this vaccine thing and even
that's
call it
why
a
they
vaccine?
changed
Why
the
not call it a
definition.
cure or a therapeutic or anything but the V word? Like,
That's why they changed the definition in September 2021. And Borla was talking about those pills during the pandemic. He was interviewed and talking about the sensor pills. It's like Brave New World. It's time to pop a soma, or get relegated to the savage lands. I wanted to ask you, Jason. So when that, I don't know which reporter was interviewing Gates, I found it interesting that they even introduced unnatural virus. It's all about introducing things and slowly the Overton window. What did you think of that?
It's something that Gates has been talking about as well. One of the clips that I played was all the way back during the beginning of the COVID 1984 nightmare, where Gates looks the camera and the journalist right in the face. He says, "There's no doubt this is a natural virus from a bat, right?" And let's talk about narrative shifts.
Right, right,
Central Intelligence Agency is out there officially endorsing the lab leak theory. And this is what I've said from
right.
the very beginning. All right. In the very beginning, before we had the data, I said it was very low possibility this was a natural virus, almost none. But once they found the 12 sequence DNA nucleotide identical to HIV, done. Like, let's not have any
Right,
more
right.
questions about pangolins and bats. That's imagination.
Mhm.
So now you have to ask yourself whether or not this is on purpose or whether or not this is a leak. And I'm sorry, I know I look stupid, but if
Right,
you just do the cursory amount of research, and anybody can do this virus, the COVID 1984 virus, is in the United States in October latest of 2019, not a January leak in China. That's fucking ludicrous.
right,
Okay.
right.
You look at the reality of what was going on at that point. You had the worst flu season we'd had in almost a decade, if not more. You had popcorn lung happening. You had young people,
Right.
supposedly they were just vaping too much and they were ending up on ventilators.
Right.
Okay. You
Right
then
near Fort Detrick, the outbreak, two nursing homes. I wrote about that.
yeah, you sparsely, even in January and February, had cases, especially in New York, that looked a lot like COVID. In fact, in my own town, Oneonta, New York, in December of 2019, there's a kid, and I say 20-year-old kid, walking around, goes to the hospital. They tell him he has walking pneumonia at the time. Okay. He ends up the next week on a ventilator in a coma for 3 weeks after, and somehow survived just being young, probably because they didn't also have the crazy protocols at that point of cutting you off from everything else.
Right.
He's like, I was like patient zero. You weren't patient zero, but you were in the first flux for sure, my friend.
There was sorry, Jason. In Wuhan, there was several patient zeros. If you paid attention, I was chastised because I was covering the lab leak and the report that the government put out called Muddying the Waters. And I'm like, I know it's a cover for a cover, but I want to figure out what the tries are, the truth mixed with lies, because it became a clusterfuck. Anyone who was following the trials, and I mean, they really did muddy the waters, that no one would think this is a bioweapon.
Think about when the initial outbreaks come to westernized nations, right? First, you got pockets in Europe, in Italy. Everybody forgets about Iran when a large portion of the ruling class there just died like that. And they had a huge outbreak like that. That's not nature. Viruses naturally don't get more lethal. To me, this is a seeded bioweapons attack that they seeded several times. And then on top of that, conflated the real flu, anything that they do COVID-19 to bring in these authoritarian protocols. But there was a real virus. Again, I'm not the guy that doesn't think that there are any viruses, all those things. I think that we're looking at, again, another one of these international operations that go outside of nation states If you just look at the creation of the virus alone, you
Yeah.
got the United States, you got Chapel Hill, you got
France.
you get to Eco Health Alliance, then you can start getting into China and Wuhan. We've set these plausible deniability circles up, and then you get to conveniently blame other nation states. Remember when China actually said, well, actually, we think the U.S. military might have seeded it at the Wuhan military games, which, again, it might not have been the U.S. military, but damn it, that seems like that could have happened as well. Again, I'll shut up.
I will say, I recently went.
You look like you want to talk. You haven't gotten to talk yet, sir.
You know, I just think this is fascinating. Everything you guys have going in of researched, I leave to you guys. I'm honestly not on the research topics you guys are. The last couple of months of my life has been figuring out where I was restricted, where the system that we all know exists as this parasite laid on this beautiful land of ours, and how can I free myself from it.
Right.
And that has been the main focus for me. So I have a little checklist here I've been working on since October, actually. And so far, I have done my E-Verify to let the folks know that I'm no longer in their game. I am not a voter as far as Texas is concerned. Got my assumed name certificate through Minnesota State, my revocation of election and passport change
That's
I got done.
awesome,
And also, I'm in a trust class now that is learning how to do bonds. And I did my Treasury Direct account and got a $25 savings bond. So
That's awesome.
I'm,
How long did it take for you to do that? And are
that
you
list since October. October 17th is when I made my first move, but I'm researching this for over 2 years. It took me over 2 years before I made my first move. It's learning a whole new language. It's all the things that we
Right.
talk about, figuring out how they speak, where you're restricted, and where you can free yourself. So I, with my revocation of election, let the IRS know that I'm no longer interested in income tax or being considered a taxpayer. There was a whole affidavit that I sent in. It's about 20 pages. Notarized and all, sent to
Wow.
3 different places, and then your passport with an explanatory statement that changed me from a U.S. citizen to a national, which is really what I am. And it's far more freeing, and I feel great. I think that if there is a soul trap here, this is how you
Yes,
escape
there
it,
is a
is by
soul
doing this and figuring out how to self-govern, and that's what sovereignty is all about. And so this is the community I've been a part of. This is what's been consuming my life. I haven't really talked about aliens or drones or Bigfoot or anything fun lately. I've been just going, oh, we're being fucked here. Oh, how can I be actionable and tend my garden? And this is the steps that I've made. And like I said, I'm in a phenomenal community. We've been meeting since August. And now we're in March about to start writing our own trusts. So we're getting out of the bullshit banking system and learning about lawful money and all kinds of fascinating things, guys. So
Can you
that's
share,
where we're at.
Brandon?
You
if
missed
someone-
disclosure completely. You missed ET
You
disclosure.
know, it's
while you're in
you know,
there,
I
so.
see. You know what it is though, and I'm glad you said it, Graham. I'm gonna drop a Rumble. Actually, somebody, my mentor, in the chat here, and I will let Ricky decide if he wants to disseminate that or not. But it's in the private chat here in the meeting. But you're right, Graham. There's a lot going on out there, and if you guys have ever read the book Exo Vaticana, I've got a copy of it over there. Chris Putnam and Thomas Horn. You guys familiar? Basically talks about the Vatican Church and their orchestration into the coming deception, which will be the alien phenomena. And the
Right.
more that I've talked to, actually today is the 4-year anniversary release of the first episode on the show. So thanks for having me, Ricky. And one of the things through that 4 years I've noticed in the 300 whatever episodes is a lot of people have experienced a lot of crazy shit. But what it's done is it's done something very impactful to them and alter them emotionally. And back to what Miriam was saying about the archons, I think that there's an interesting opportunity to recognize
Yes.
forces around us that animate in fog form, if that's how I see it. And it sort of is on your soul narrative. It's going to pick to you. It's going to really get to you and be very specific. And that really lends to more of the subjective nature of this place. And every time I looked around and was like, where am I bound? Why is my business not where I want it to be? Why is my safety not where I want it to be? Why do I feel this? Why have I been hanging the American flag upside down since I was a teenager? You know, all that shit. I figured out where it was and where the restrictions are. And if you get, are you guys into that space? I know, Graham, we will leave you out on this, but how many in this group right now, just by raising hands, if you want to play this game, feel that you are an American citizen?
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Anybody else? Just 3, 4?
Um,
Ricky?
Well, I'm actually not an American citizen, so I don't count.
Okay, fair enough. But out
I
of the
will be
American
soon.
citizens
I will
here,
be soon. I mean,
I'm
we all
double-
will be soon.
Yeah.
well,
Exactly.
51st state, settle down. We'll get to you. But what I'm saying is, what about out of the people that answered citizen, do you work for the federal government in any capacity or take money from the federal government in any way?
Nope.
Not personally.
Okay.
The
Do
company that
you
I work for
live
does.
in Okay, do you live in Puerto Rico or Washington, D.C., the 10-mile square radius that is the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C.? Do you do either of those two things?
Do I do Puerto Ricans? Is that what you said?
No.
No.
Again, you're ruled out. So what I mean to say is this is an easy check, guys. If you do not work for the federal government, you do not live in the 10 square mile radius that is considered Washington, D.C., technically you're not a U.S. citizen. You don't check the box. So now every time you check that box under penalty of perjury, you're actually not being altruistic. And that's what got me kicked, because I couldn't keep lying on that form. Plus, I, again, just started knowing more about it, and that there is a beautiful republic operating right here on the landmass around us. It's just masked with this shit parasite called the lowercase, uppercase United States.
Brandon,
Brandon?
So anyway, it's
talk
fascinating.
about this? Would you come on my show and talk about?
I will talk about what I know, but I can be very honest with you and just admit to you completely, and everyone here, I'm a student. I feel like I don't know fucking
fine.
anything about this. But what I will do is point you in the right direction, Amir, and I'd love to come on and talk to you about anything, darling. And we have a lot to say about the Aquarius, Pluto moving into Aquarius.
Yeah, I wanted to also ask you how you see
money.
this.
Oh, hang on. Everything talked over and broke up.
Federal government, but I do hold in my hand right here a check for showing up to jury duty, which I did not want to do.
Well, your revocation of election clears you from that, actually. That's
How much is it?
to do what?
It was, thank goodness, it got settled, and I did not have to come the second day. So it is only the $34 that they provide you every single day per diem. Haven't cashed it yet. But probably putting it in the bank account from having to stand out in the cold for 45 minutes before we even got into the courthouse.
You could write them a letter saying your special appearance fee is $500 a day, and that they have to pay for all of your commuting, and they have to honor it. And if they don't, then you don't need to show up, and you're out of that obligation. You call the scene. You call the game here, guys. That's what I've really learned in all this. There's it's up to you, but you've really got to make the steps and do it.
What I want to ask you, Brandon, is how do you see liberating yourself from this inverted bullshit system? Like how do you see that tied to the soul trap? And before you answer, to me, the getting out of the light at the end of the tunnel, which I did talk about on this show in April 2020, that part of it, if you consider the ancient Egyptians putting myrrh and frankincense and ormus, and that these motherfuckers are putting formaldehyde, I wonder how that process of liberating, because the ancient Egyptian took 70 days to usher the soul back to the stars. So I'm curious, how are you seeing this process? Is it just like an empowering process, or how does it literally tie into the soul trap?
I'm going to answer your question by answering somebody in the chat on YouTube. Starkey, isn't this the sovereign citizen nonsense? I'm going to answer it because no, and here's why. Because sovereign citizen, those two words don't work together. One means free and governed by self. The other one means slave and member of a corporation. Those two things don't jive. So whenever you see people getting tased online that are screaming that they're sovereign citizens, that's for good reason. They should be getting tased. They don't know what the fuck they're talking about. But within this, there's absolute empowerment, and this is God's law. This is common law stuff. So when you get into trusts, you don't mention beneficiaries. You get the fuck. IRS does not audit trusts. You are completely free. And this is the other thing, is I think we all walk around with the idea that somebody's going to take from us when we earn, and you're not wrong if you're contracted in these specific ways. Another thing I'd like to mention to Snarky over there, Starkey, rather, my apologies. Thank you for the comment, because it's a good thing to point out, is yes, I do feel that this is the hidden hand. This is the reason why the red and blue fight and get distracted. This is why the bread and circus exists, is because there is a huge game being played here that all you have to do is literally figure it out. This is us standing up on, the table where they're playing the game on our backs and like ruining the fucking game. This is seeing that all of that shit was a distraction, but you're empowered by this knowledge and seeing that the 14th Amendment, actually, the 13th Amendment took away physical slavery. 14th Amendment put you in slavery with the citizenship. Income tax is voluntary. And whenever you see this and see where your income tax actually goes, and it's not the sweeping, so you don't pay taxes anymore. No, your property tax goes to education. Gas tax goes to roads and infrastructure, what it's supposed to. your income tax. That's a gift, by the way. That's what it's classified as in the IRS. So whenever you go to get your tax return done and they say, okay, well, you paid in 13, we're going to give you 4 back. And you're like, fuck yeah, 4 grand. Oh my God. You gave them $14,000 and they're giving you a piddly of it back. What could your family do with that extra 14 grand a year? It's when you really sit down and see where you're outsourcing your power in these things, that, Miriam, is to answer your question where I found the soul trap was happening. I found where the loosh was occurring and it was being sucked off me voluntarily. You're handing it to them voluntarily. The thing with this too, when you start making processes and stuff, there's nothing to fear in this. They're a clerical organization that's there just to file paperwork. So whenever I sent my passport in, they just go, oh, you're this now instead of that. Got it. Okay, see you later. Have a good day. There's no sort of people banging on your door and shit. It's
I'm
really
happy
freeing,
that
guys.
you made the distinction between the whole bullshit of sovereign citizen, because in the Smear NBC series Shadowland, there's a character that is a shyster that talks about sovereign citizen, and it gives a bad name and makes it seem that it's not doable and that it's bullshit.
Just for context here.
Yeah.
And I love the portrayals because we all know that, the Bureau of Land Management nonsense where they were coming in seasoned lands, killing people's dogs, got buried in the BLM Black Lives Matter hashtag movement, right? If you look up anything on Australia's secret secret military base called Pine Gap, you're not going to find it because it got buried in some shitty UPN show called Pine Gap and it sucked. But what it does is it buries these hashtags and it subverts and misdirects. And I agree with you. Now, I will also, back to the comments, say that there is a lot of what I would refer to as sticks of dynamite. Now, this is in anything. You've got someone yelling at you that frogs are gay, but maybe you don't need to think that frogs are gay all the time, right? Maybe that turns your attention to the thing, and then it got you to discover a little bit more with a little bit of discernment, right? There are a lot of people in this movement that are here just to gain a system, so it's trading one nonsense thing for another. Keep your eyes out for that shit, but a lot of people also are going to get you here and steer you wrong. If you don't do your Treasury Direct account correct, that locks you out of your Seska KV trust that you got at birth, that your social security number is an account number, and it locks you out of it forever. So you've got to do the shit right. It's easy to fuck this up. This is why it took me 2 years to make one move, one simple fucking move that took me five minutes to make. What I'm saying is it's a ton of education. And if we put it to this, and like I said, we have a trust study group now that we've formed just to go over the homework that they give us, man, and read court cases and shit, because this is where the power is. It's in your hands. You've just got to see it and grab it, though.
Well, a lot of things you have to do the nitty-gritty research, and it's like, who really works anymore to look for things or empower? They just go along with the program.
I went from reading UFO books to the Constitution, and I've got Fruit of a Poisonous Tree, and I'm reading court cases and shit now. I mean, Graham, a couple years ago at Contact was this kind of guy. The fire's been lit, man, because I see it. I see it very clearly. It's like the fog got blown off. I see where all the chains are and saw how to unlock them. So again, Joe Lustica is who I recommend. There's a lot of sticks of dynamite in this community that will get your attention drawn to them. They may have some information that's working or not, maybe turn you away or not. The one I can recommend is Joe Lustica. This is the guy that I've been following. He is on Rumble. Highly recommend this dude.
Thank you.
Spend some time on this dude's site. I actually just had him on for a recording today, so it'll be out in a couple of weeks. We have a whole sovereignty series going.
I've had a lot of experiences in my truth journey where I run up against a topic where it's like, oh, that's just too big for me to deal with right now. And so I just avoid looking into something because I'm just like, I just don't have time for that right now. Right. And so, I've ran up against that with this particular topic. It seems fascinating. Philosophically, I completely agree with it. I know there's so much that I need to learn about it. I have this one friend that's always trying to push it down my throat. He's like a good friend of mine. He's like always sending me these YouTube videos, this stuff to watch. And I'm like, bro, I'm literally going to become a cop. Okay, you're making me want to become and he sends me a video and I'm like, oh, I'm joining the police academy, right? I'm filling out my application to the police academy right now. I'm joking, but it's just like, but here's my question. So back before I got sober, right, about 8 years ago, I used to have lots of run-ins with the police, okay? And I was like one of those guys. I spent a lot of time in jail. I went to prison back in the day. I've since cleaned my record up completely. I have no felony-free, completely clean record, but I was a bad guy back in the day. And no, dude, I got some stories, Miriam, for sure. But my whole thing is like, once I go down this path, like how much am I like that's the other thing is like I don't want to have to deal with the police ever again. That's why I keep it in line. I don't want to have to fight these things in court. I don't want to spend my life in court. You know what I mean? That is not the life I want to live because I've been there and I've done that. And I just don't want to live that life. And so I kind of just you know, I just kind of toe the line these days. And so that's kind of where I'm at with it. Like, what would be your response to that?
My response is phenomenal question because you answered, like, I've got a shit-eating grin on my face for this reason. I talked to Joe about this. I've got several mentors on this, several, opinions, right? And I talked to him about this. I said, look, you've got a lot of run-ins with the cops. You've done a lot of things. I'm taking the steps I'm comfortable with in the order my nervous system is cool with. Still challenging myself. This is way outside my comfort zone, but it's become all consuming because I see it. I get it. And again, this to the soul trap. It hits me on all the levels. Nothing fulfilled me soul wise except this shit until I started doing it. Within this though, what I would say is the number one reason I am doing this, just like all of us are sitting here for any reason, is to better my quality of life and the quality of life of my home, my family, and my wife, right? Now, if I'm getting pulled over every 20 minutes because my plate says diplomat, I don't have a driver's license. I'll go over that in a second. Traveling is different than commercial law, and we'll talk about it. But I'm not in this to sit there and educate a stormtrooper, trigger happy stormtrooper on the side of the road that doesn't know the law anyway. That's not what I'm here to do. What I am here to do is live my best fucking life possible. Now, within that, I have found that my freedoms lie within, again, I'm not interested. I'll pay you $100 to register my car. Yes, it's registered through the state, but guess what? It's owned through the trust, so you can't touch it, right? Then the other part of this is, I'll go ahead and get my driver's license for the real ID bullshit, which is bullshit, and it is unconstitutional. But say that to the Southwest employee when you need to fly across country, right? They haven't ruled it unconstitutional yet. You still got to live in this motherfucker. The whole point to this is to be 1 foot in, 1 foot out, to be able to control your straw man, to be able to sit up. And that's what my revocation of election does. It says, hey, you treated me as a buried thing under the ground, as a corporation. That's what a person is. It's a corporation. It's not a human being. Human being, they classify as a monster, a sea monster, actually. And so, because this is all maritime law, that's why ships are women, and that's why banks control currency, and they're on either side of a river. All of this, guys, is spiritual. It's metaphor. It's God's law. I'm not even a Christian or a Bible. This may get me to Jesus. I'm just saying. But as of right now, I'm just seeing how it's empowered me, but only to the degree, again, that I'm willing to make the moves and what will benefit my quality of life. Do I see me getting out of income tax for many reasons? Yes, absolutely. It goes to the CFR, and that's what they're fucking shipping over to Ukraine. Pass. I'm not pass. This is where I can be actionable.
Do you think you would have done it if you don't have to pay income tax? Like, what if Trump really did get rid of the income tax? Would that stop everybody from doing that, do you think?
This came about, actually, some things came ahead because there was a little bit of wave of this in the community that a revocation of election, an ROE, may not be necessary. I was already doing the research. I'm balls into this. This was for me more than anything, and it always has been. I filed the paperwork because it was a motherfucker, dude, to write that affidavit, to get all this straight, to cite my codes, to write what I really wanted to say to the IRS is what I'm doing. You send it to the commissioner of the IRS and the one in my state as well. So, whenever you go through this process, it's again, this is the soul trap. This is you really telling God and everything around you that you are not to be fucked with, because this is a sovereign path, not a sovereign citizen. That means you're a free slave. It doesn't, again, it's the education just isn't there. But that's why I'm grateful you guys are asking, because this is the most important thing, I think, for us all moving forward.
I appreciate it. I'm just wondering if that would change your mind on the soul trap if you went a few years without paying income tax. I mean,
because the parasite's still there, and you're still classified by a citizen. You're still under their jurisdiction, and that's why the CPS can take your kids, because you register them with the state. They're property of the state. That's what a birth certificate is. Again, bank numbers, rounding numbers, they all have 9 to 13 digits, and that's what your social and all that is. But it's an account you have access to if you stand up and control it.
If you have a child in the CPS system and you do this process, can you get away from the clutches of CPS?
You don't register your child with the state. They don't own it. You have rights because you go like this. And that's from God. And no one can take that away from you. And this is where like the real rubber meets the road with this shit, guys. There's nothing to fear here. They're only doing it because we keep going, okay. But the second we go, no, fuck no, send a 14-page affidavit. Get with Joe. Get in our trust community. Learn how to get out of the fucking debt-based
the question I'm
system.
asking you, CPS will take your a man's license away. That's where the deadbeat dad, they literally throw them in jail and they suspend their license. So
they're U.S. citizens. They're contracted in with the government to be treated by the government.
If you become a citizen and you're already in the clutches, could you then get out of the clutches of the CPS? that make
CPS
sense?
has to do with you, again, registering your child. So if you are a national and you live on the land, not in the land, then you're a free inhabitant of this place. You're not subject to statutes. And in fact, speeding tickets don't apply to you. That's a statute. It's not a law, right? There's no crime that's been committed. So CPS and all these other entities are only because you've registered your kids with the state and you said that the government can do that to them. They can't come take them otherwise.
What I see when you talk about the soul trap is that the whole exercise is obviously an empowering one when where
Yes.
you're taking back your power. And when you talk about Loosh, if anyone doesn't know that, Bob Monroe of the Monroe Institute, they were actually studying Kundalini, because when you have a Kundalini experience, which I've had one, your right side, it becomes more predominant, your higher self. And the whole gateway was tried to find the brain coherence, but it's also the fact that he invented the word Loosh talks a bit, like, to me, it shows that the whole gateway experience was to find out this is a whole Loosh farm. All this distraction is essentially Loosh. I've given them a lot of my Loosh. And I'm pretty much like retiring as a journalist, because who the fuck am I going to write for? I'm just like throwing my pearls to swine. And I've just been looking at the soul and reincarnation, and which was my first love, and just trying to raise my frequency and do my inner work so I can get out of here. I'm not reincarnating back to this. I've already sussed out their vaccine schedule. I'm like, I don't want to be jabbed with 64 jabs or whatever. But I personally am an evolved soul, and I'm not coming back here. It's not a defeatist move. I'm gonna go to the planet, another planet, or
Well, that's the goal, right? Is not to come back. I mean, the Buddhist Book of the Dead, I mean, that's what they were trying to do, right? Keep going.
But the thing is, you have to really do shadow work and really purify and purge, and this is like a serious journey. I think if there's avatars and you pick, the regular Joe Schmo that's just in the matrix and not questioning, if you pick the path of divine truth, like after the Kundalini and did meditation, I'm like, oh, I've died many times speaking the truth. I've been around for a while. And so what can I do to study the character of Miriam and live from my soul and not fall into the trap? Because where did it get me to stand up for others? I mean, they've targeted me. And I see now, like, I was thinking to ask Jason, like, how do you find the Russell brands are pivoting? Like, I was asking I think it was on Steve, I was asking Steve, like, how are they addressing the conservatives, this transhumanist agenda, when even like Clay Clark is like, I can't stand by, because I'm not a fan of Elon Musk.
Well, just kind of talking about, I guess, the conservative media, or what would be, the alternative conservative media, or even just regular run-of-the-mill conservatives that, have woken up somewhat since COVID 1984, but at the same time, I think are blind to a lot of the issues, especially when we're talking about the technocracy, Musk, government contracts, etc. I just say this: do better. And what do I mean by do better? Conor McGregor was at the inauguration. Like, I mean, hey, everybody, I sat there and screamed for 5+ years. The guy got convicted in court of sexually assaulting that woman violently. And because it was a civil court, everybody acted like it didn't happen. You can't be that hypocritical when it comes to these things. Like, he had VIP access, and I had to watch Right Side Broadcasting Network talk about, oh, there he is. It's Conor McGregor. He's just like Trump. I'm like, you don't want that guy to be anything like Trump. That is a cocaine-addicted, serial violent rapist. You want that on the other side of Trump. Let me give you another example. Andrew Tate. I'm a big fight fan. Andrew Tate's a great kickboxer. He made his money not only pimping out women, but young girls. So if you're mad that Jeffrey Epstein was having sex with 14 and 15-year-old girls, guess what? On record, Andrew and his brother have both admitted to having sex with 14 and 15-year-old girls. So why are you celebrating these people as heroes? Mainline conservatism has to get a lot better, and so does alternative conservatism. And I'm sorry, it's just like, to me, when you look at those issues that should really be cut and dry, like they're out there. Anybody can watch that stuff. It's the same thing with Candace Owens. You know, she went to bat for McGregor. She's best buddies with Tate. Candace, doing some great work with NASA and other things, but give me a fucking break. And I'm sorry, I'm not willing to bend the knee so I get a better spot on another channel or some other show or get promoted by this person. I can give a fuck. I'm going to remain consistent. Like, when I say it's about right and wrong, you're goddamn right it is. So out of everything in the, you know, I don't sit here on my high horse and tell people to believe religiously, spiritually, any of that. What I can tell you for sure is good and evil fucking exist. And I'm going to try to be on the good side of things as much as possible. So like, these are baseline things. Just try getting into the weeds about Elon Musk and SpaceX. Everybody's talking about going to fucking Mars. Are you out of your fucking mind? No one is going to Mars. Rockets are not taking human beings to Mars. That is not a real thing. By their own white papers and admissions, it is not a real thing. Look into any of the reality with NASA and they will tell you that first you would send nanobots, which I don't know if we've gotten that far, to survey the area, send back the data, and then create a virtual Mars. I mean, people are so far gone. I don't know if anybody's seen it, but I'm going to encourage you to go watch it. There's a new comedy special out. Damn it, it's killing me. It's the fucking Hot Pockets guy. Pretty run-of-the-mill guy. Everybody knows who I'm talking about. His new thing is about taking not Ozempic, but Wegovy. It's the skinny. He's a funny dude.
Gaffigan?
Gaffigan. Thank you. Jim Gaffigan's got a new special out. And he goes, we're going to Mars? People are talking about we're going to Mars? He's like, are we? Are we? He goes, I think people have gotten pretty arrogant about technology. He's like, and I don't think they're talking about you and you're going to Mars. And he makes a moon landing joke, but I just want to put this out there. We had the Dragon capsule, SpaceX, go up 1,100 miles. Okay, so that's what they're telling us. Circumventing for the first time since Apollo, the Van Allen radiation belts by human beings. It should also be historic in the fact that it is the highest officially that any woman has gone in space, let alone two women. Okay? The Russians still haven't gone past 900 fucking miles. This is 1,100 miles that we're saying. The moon is supposed to be 200 fucking 50,000 miles away and then back. Are we assholes? Do you believe before they landed a man on the moon on Christmas Eve the year before, they sent a rocket around the moon, and as they did, they broadcast the moon and did a hymn? Do you fucking believe that? Or do you believe that we are sending satellites up into orbit through a commercial organization that are now commercialized via Starlink, and at the same time launching the Blackjack program, and at the same time allowing Musk and SpaceX to build the new spy satellite system run by the DoD? Well, you don't have to believe it. It's on the fucking record. So like the public is so enthralled in the shiny bauble of what they saw in the movie theater or on their favorite fucking TV show beyond what's really going on. And that's a big problem because we're going to be bombarded with information soon. Right? There's going to be some shifts in narratives like we've never seen before. RFK, MLK, JFK are going to do that no matter what is released and whether that stuff is real or not, right? So I think we're in for a wild ride, and especially with AI, deep fakes, and all these different things, people better up their discernment game on every fucking angle, and I'll shut up.
Well, what if many people are actively becoming zombified and are so far gone? I'm sorry to say that, but
is that new, Miriam? I mean, throughout history, I think
for the jab.
Yeah, and look, I am sympathetic for the ignorance factor because I don't know everything. And, earlier today we were talking about AI and the technologies that are out there. Mark Andreessen, the billionaire that's talking about AI, a lot of people need to start paying attention to what he said. So if you've not seen the clips of Mark Andreessen, there's two clips that are extremely important that I'm not sure people understand the gravity of what he said. He said that he was in the meetings with the Pentagon and the Defense Department on artificial intelligence, and they told him it is a walled garden and not to invest, and that startups will not be allowed. And then he said, well, wait a minute, what, isn't the math already out there? Like, how are you going to censor this? And they answered him by saying the same way we did in the Cold War, where we took entire arenas of physics out of the research of academia. And that's mind-blowing. But think, the Cold War started in the 50s. Okay, everybody? So we're talking about a 70-plus year time period. They've successfully done that. Now, when they told them they would do that with AI, let me just give everybody, and this is another clip, different presentation by Andreessen. Media hasn't picked up on this either. He said, look, the Pentagon openly had large language models in the 90s, okay? Now, you would think that those models would be completely inferior, but they're not. And he said, somebody just got Llama running on Windows 98. What does that mean? That means since the 90s, if the Defense Department wanted to do it and release the algorithms for what they had as artificial intelligence then, we could have all been talking to our PCs beyond what people are doing with Siri now. Okay, Llama is much like ChatGPT. We could all have been talking to our computers in English almost the last 30 years, and we're just getting that technology now. These have huge implications for what the reality of the science is, of what these craft, UAP, whatever really are, all right? And what type of technology they're actually utilizing at this point. And unfortunately, I think that Trump is pretty ignorant to a lot of that as well.
Did you see the article today in CNN about the Chinese DeepSeek, which was this AI that they made for $5.6 million in 1 year, and it totally blows up the investment model of the $60 billion that's already been invested?
We opened it up today opened up with that because NVIDIA lost a lot of money. And that's the point, right? And look, I think there are going to be leapfrogs, but the real question comes into, you've got Google and NASA. They've openly been working on quantum computing and AI for over a decade. They partnered in 2006 openly, but if you look at the origin story of Google, NASA is integral from the inception. All right. And what are they selling you on when they talk about quantum computing? They're not really talking about the AI aspects of it. They're trying to sell you on the fucking multiverse that doesn't exist. These people are liars through and fucking through. And that's why, again, I talk about it all the time. We're deep into the fucking post-truth world. And I really think, look, I love a lot what Trump's doing. And I'm probably going to duck out after this little bit. And I want to thank you for putting this on all the time, Ricky. But at the same time, I'm cautiously optimistic. I don't think that we bend the knee to any leader, any party, and we constantly question things that don't make sense and that are not being discussed. And we got a long way to go before we get there and get to real meritocracies so that maybe we can bring back this constitutional republic. I think and I fear that technologically, we're going to be pushed so forward in the next 4 years with automation, the blockchain, AI, and narrative management. We'll see how possible that is. And once again,
before you leave, Jason, I got a question for you, because I agree with you that, the Andreessen clips in particular were fascinating. To bury that entire line of physics for 75 years is a remarkable feat, assuming that they're not overstating their capacity. What I don't understand is, how is it that they're going to harness AI, even if, say, they have a 10 or a 20 or a 30-year head start, if what we're hearing of these reports is accurate, that in fact DeepSeek just demolished their entire investment paradigm? What makes this time in history different is that after World War II, there was really no competitor. There was also no internet. There was no capacity to transmit information very rapidly. I just don't see how the U.S. government can lock down AI development, it seems as if they're already getting their lunch eaten because they're attempting to do that by these small developers in China. It just seems as if, like, if they don't decide to just open this up to free competition domestically, we're going to get demolished in this race. So I think that they may have to. Well, what's your thoughts on that?
I would just say this: look at what AI is right now. It's all narrative management. I did a whole video on Grok that I was discussing earlier, where I'm asking Grok, for instance, I ask it about the conflict of interest of YouTube and the fact that Google has all these military industrial complex contracts with the Department of Defense and NASA in particular in quantum computing and AI and narrative management. And it gave me like a 4-page list of how I was right and confirmed it, right? And it even used, for instance, when Google workers twice, not once, but twice, walked out on the drone program because they were building autonomous drones that were killing people, that were choosing targets, and people like, I don't want to be a part of that. Here's where I think there's a convergence, right? Because I think you're right. The math, they're not going to be able to control. But what if the hardware for you and I is just not the same? So in other words, when you're looking at something like what these quantum computers are really doing, you're starting to now hear about commercial quantum computing, stabilization of these qubits for longer periods of time. They don't necessarily have to be in like those big black D-wave boxes. For those that are unfamiliar with these initial attempts at quantum computing, there's a bunch of different kinds, but quantum annealing, for instance, is they would literally build a vacuum box where it was as cold as space for this little chip just to enable it. I don't know how that gets commercialized. Now, I can't imagine how it will get miniaturized and stabilized and possibly utilized by these people. This is what I would say. When we're talking about the trickle down of technology, for instance, I'm a big NASA guy. So there's a 2016 NASA presentation you can go check out on C-SPAN called Transformers Conference. Now, it starts out with Martine Rothblatt and really from transgender to transhuman, but then it goes to NASA. It's pretty wild. But Rothblatt's very involved in NASA, GPS, Sirius XM, all those things. But what I found fascinating is that they were talking about the satellite CubeSats, very small, right? So now they have projects throughout the country where even elementary school kids and high school kids with their technology professors can build these CubeSats, which are very, very small, and they'll get launched up to the ISS on a Falcon rocket, right? They'll put those up there, but then they have their own kind of things. Now, these things were enabled through technology that NASA had all the way back in the 70s. He starts talking about this microchip technology. He goes, but it wasn't until that the miniaturization and then the commercialization of that process through Samsung cell phones, right? Samsung was utilizing a certain type of chip and it was excessive. So now in the market, they had created this thing that had been around for 30 plus years. They had something that could do it, but now it's miniaturized and cheap. So now they throw it out to the consumer arena and they also utilize it beyond that. So I don't know if we're getting their hardware. I do know they keep, like, for instance, man, we just saw that video of the egg retrieval, right? There's nothing about that video that makes me think that that's not human technology. Now, is it technology that the helicopter guy and the other people had never seen before? Sure. But these black programs, again, have been around since post-World War II. So
what about the psychic possession connection?
I am always extremely, and I mean extremely cautious when we talk about anything to do with psychic phenomena. And let me say this, Annie Jacobson, who I probably respect more than anybody, has a whole book on that, where she buys into a lot of Uri Geller's stuff. And Uri Geller's another fascinating character, Mossad, CIA. Actually, CIA was doing a lot of work with him. Then they found out he was Mossad and they kicked him out of the program. That's something a lot of people don't know. I stay away from that stuff, although the Gateway document that Miriam, I cover all the time because it is really important, because that's Army, Central Intelligence Agency.
Can I ask you a real quick question about that? Would you trust to listen to their brain coherence, knowing, like, wouldn't you think that maybe they're shoving some frequencies? Because I was tempted to try it, and I asked someone, well, what do you think? And actually Metzger went on with Sam, right? And he's like, I wouldn't trust it, right? And my instinct would be, hi, Courtney.
Hey, how are you?
What do you think, Jason?
It,
Oh, you do?
to me, it's a piece of paper that looks real, and it looks like they've done these experiments, right? And they give you, a bunch of their conclusions, which essentially there's a couple videos that I've done recently about the nature of reality with this professor, and it's the theory of biocentrism. So anybody looks up biocentrism. This is a
Lanza?
top university.
Lanza, I think, right? I think his name's Lanza, maybe?
Yep, Lanza. It's not, I forget, Mike Lanza. It might be Mike Lanza, but you are correct. It is Lanza Robert Lanza, Dr. Robert Lanza. So Dr. Robert Lanza, essentially, and he's got the funding, and he actually talks about the quantum experiments and the slit and the influence on reality that our consciousness exudes. And essentially that reality does not exist without our consciousness.
Right.
I'm really shortening it, but it goes right into that arena of the gateway process and all these things. And the question is, can you, again, I'm not trying to get into woo here, but I'll say this. Everything around us is invisible. That means something. Right now, you guys are in tens of thousands of miles away sometimes, right? We're looking at each other in high definition, many of us on Wi-Fi. Even when we were analog, TV waves, radio waves, they had GPS back in World War II. So we have large spectrums of different energy. In fact, NASA, this year in August, and this is why you never trust the science, because the science always changes, but look this up. NASA came out and said, hey, we just discovered this new electromagnetic field force that is just as important as gravity. That should have been on the front page of.
Really? When did that come out? Recently?
I will. You know what? Let's do it live. We'll do it O'Reilly style. Give me 1 second.
Fuck it. We'll do it live.
And NASA discovers force as important as gravity. You guys hear my electronic keyboard or my thing? It's right there. And his first thing that comes up, oh, look at that. August, the end of August this year, discovers a long-sought global electrical field on Earth. Now, we don't see this with our own eyes. They're telling you this is as important as gravity. Once again, you would think that's kind of a big deal. But the big deals, they don't tell the public anymore. And that's another reason that, you really have to remain ever vigilant in this narrative restricted post-truth world.
Right.
Let me hop in real quick because I got to run here shortly. I'm just curious, around the panel, if I'm panicking for no reason. This is totally off the beaten path of what we were talking about, but I am getting major war on terror vibes. But when it comes to the Mexican drug cartels, I feel, and this, I'm probably in the minority of people who played into the duopoly script and voted for Trump this go around, even though I ran for the vice presidency under the Libertarian Party. I'm getting very, very nervous about the reactions I'm getting online from people when it comes to kind of a bloodlust. I understand the sadness, the anger, the animosity when it comes to so many people being lost to the fentanyl crisis. I totally get that. I totally get major concerns about the atrocities and human rights violations that are human trafficking, not to mention the child sex trafficking, which is an abomination and they should be nuked off the face of the earth. But I don't think that going to war with our southern neighbor is going to go so hot. And it definitely seems like that's where we're headed. And let me add to that. It does not seem as if the Trump administration is just bluffing and blustering and bullshitting when it comes to bringing Canada into the fold, as well as Iceland, which is all in alignment with
Greenland.
Greenland. My apologies. So yeah, anybody else feeling this vibe? That's I've been fearful for Iran, and now I'm thinking, oh, I had this all wrong. We're going to war with Mexico.
Let me just three-line it. Yeah. With the Canada stuff, I thought it was a tongue-in-cheek joke. Let's hope it's not a push for a North American Union style. Right. We need less centralization. That's bad news, Brown. As far as the cartels and South America, I really hope that doesn't have to escalate militarily. But I'll tell you right now, if it does, I don't even think that's a thing. I think we
Yeah, I
crush
don't either.
so quickly and they bend the knee. It isn't like something that could go wrong with Ukraine and Russia and a false flag up. That's just how I feel. In fact, before you logged on, I was more concerned with the executive order against cartels because really, what are these cartels, and are we going to acknowledge our own government's involvement with that drug dealing? I think that there's been a few things that are tongue in cheek that I don't expect to come to fruition. But the one thing that I thought was tongue in cheek that I am now a little bit more hopeful on and maybe is on the positive side is maybe not the end of the IRS, but maybe some restrictions on them and maybe
That's looking like it might be real.
I didn't think it was.
I didn't either.
Get rid of the IRS. But if you can even lower federal income taxes while making energy cheaper, again, I'm buying into a golden age, but let's be honest with ourselves. One of the reasons this guy is super popular and even made the comeback is that first week that he was in 2016. Forget about this first week. There was more money in my paycheck. And no matter how many times the media said tax cuts for billionaires, I looked at my paycheck the week before. And then I looked at it after, and I was like, "Hey, that's a little extra money. That's a real thing." And gas was cheaper. These are the things that people that don't even know who Jason Burmis is, aren't watching the Unwanted, are still hooked on MSNBC or Fox News. That's what they're thinking about most of the time. So I am hoping the more dangerous stuff that you're concerned about, Clint, isn't really a concern. And actually, I'm not hopium guy. I'm hopeful, at least in the direction of financial stuff, we are in the right direction. And with that being said, guys, arrivederci. See you in a couple weeks. Thank you, Ricky, and thank you guys. We'll see you soon.
Bye,
Quick,
Jason.
two things real quick. Eric
I agree.
Hollenbach, hello in the chat. And worrying's like a rocking chair. It gives you something to do. Doesn't get you anywhere. That's how I feel about that. And that's all I'll say. Monica, how are you? Good to see you. Courtney has stepped over you.
Hi, guys.
I want to check in with you. I teared up listening to the episode.
It was cognitive dissonance. I do that show with Hervoye and Parallel Mike, and we were scheduled to do it on Wednesday, but they told us Tuesday night that the power would be off for 2 days. So I said, well, let's just do it Friday. Yeah. Well, by Friday, my house caught fire. Everyone I know, their house burned to the ground.
Your house burned?
Yeah, it did not burn to the ground, but it caught fire, and I was watching. So they told us. I mean, I can give you the little summary if you want to hear it. Yeah. But I did that show while I was still smelled like smoke, and I was still shaking.
To the wrong show, because the show I heard your house was standing and everything.
It is. My house was standing, but what happened was they turned off the power at like 3:30 at night, and so we decided in the afternoon we decided to go out to dinner and see what was what. And by the time we got back, this big fire had started, and but the fire never got as far as my house. So we literally went to sleep in our pajamas and everything. Like, it was so stupid.
So what happened after that?
Well, at 3:30 in the morning, my husband woke up and he said there's basically fire raining down on our backyard. There were burning embers from the trees. So that's how it traveled so fast. And we left at 3:30 and I had bunnies. I have this crazy dog. We had 3 cars, and so it took us a while to get settled in a hotel room. And I'm watching TV live at 7 a.m, and the chick starts talking about this street corner that she's at, which is my street corner, like my intersection. And she starts walking backwards, and I could see in the background she was walking towards my house. It was only 2 or 3 houses behind her, and there was a fire there. And I didn't catch it, but on the other side were lights, because it was probably the only place there were fire trucks at all. And I was like, that's my house for sure. And totally panicking. So my son and I left all the critters and everything, my husband and we just wanted to see. Yeah. And we got in the car, and I was sure it was gone, because every other house in her purview there was just absolute blazing. I have videos and stuff. I should have teed them up. But anyway, so we got there, and my back porch, which was wood, went on fire. My neighbor's back house was destroyed. everything except for like the immediate houses. Basically, anyone I gave a Christmas card to was still standing, and the rest of the houses were on fire or gone. I mean, it was hot. And so the firefighters put it out. The first time I had a neighbor who stayed all night and he kept putting those embers out. Then, like, when we got there, we didn't realize we'd have to start, as my son said, Mom, lock in. I was like, okay. And we grabbed like mixing bowls, and there was a pool in the backyard of my neighbor, and we just started putting the fires out. And one of the trees went up. And so my son ran and got a fire truck. It's like, you gotta help. So not too many people were around. So he asked them a couple of times to come help, and they did come help, but it was a crazy scene. Anyway, so it's super toxified right now, and we're
Is
trying
that
to
why
get back in.
you're dealing? Do you have something going on with your lungs?
Oh yeah, I definitely do. Like, I'm super worried about like the toxic exposure, but we're in an Airbnb until Friday, and then I think we have to go back. So we've got an air tester, we've got air purifiers. We're going to go clean ourselves because you could get somebody to clean, but they're not going to be around for a month. So yeah, I'm a little worried about the toxification.
Yeah, I noticed. Well, I'm perceptive, but I'm sure Courtney too has a lot of friends in Los Angeles, and several of them were sick. And I said to my friend Joe yesterday, I'm like, dude, it's the air. He's like,
it's
no,
definitely the air. Because if I go in my house for too long with the windows closed, I like have problems.
Everybody I've talked to on the phone in LA, they're
sounds like this.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm worried about that. And I fucking stupidly, I'm so stupid. I have one of those Pro Pure water filter things. And I guess maybe like smoke infiltrated it. And I'm drinking the water, and my husband was out of town. He comes home. He's like, this water is disgusting. I was like, oh, is it? I've been drinking this disgusting water. It's probably
a nebulizer and some.
I know. I got to do something.
You have to do something. I'm serious.
How about like actually drinking water that has like nasty?
Yeah, that's
stuff
a good
in
start.
I don't know what to do. Like, I already did it. You know what I mean? I'm like, shit. I woke up like, what am I gonna do?
You could take some charcoal. And I have a source for EDTA glutathione suppositories.
I did go back to my house to I have NAC, I have liposomal glutathione.
I got some charcoal to pull it out.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, I have a friend, she's a 9/11 whistleblower, and she was in North Carolina, specifically went into the hills so she can hide. And of course, the hurricane went in the mountains. And now I spoke to her, and I'm like, what's going on? She's like, there's black mold in that house. And it's already still healing from 9/11 from the smart dust.
Yeah. There's mold in my fridge. Like they wouldn't let us in. So for a while we were climbing over fences and stuff, but when they ran out, because they didn't have enough manpower to really keep you out. But once the National Guard came, I was like, I'm not sure. Like, these guys are like weekend guys. With the sheriff, when we climbed the fence and we tried to get in, he said no. And then we came out the way, and he was like, I guess you guys got in. And we're like, I don't know.
I can tell that you're
I wasn't afraid of him.
Say you're a little inflamed, but you're probably, and also obviously you're more grieving. But
I'm a little better because it's been 2.5 weeks, and everyone I know lost everything. So it's very hard to complain. Like, it's the worst thing. One of the worst things that ever happened to me, but relative to everybody else, like, there's just no comparison.
I would, if you can find Ricky, find an oxygen chamber. If it was me, I'd go straight in a hyperbaric chamber.
Okay. All right. I got to do so. I'm really worried now because
go into a hyperbaric chamber.
It's obviously affecting me. So.
Yeah, and it's affecting, like Courtney said,
everybody.
What were you gonna say, Rick?
No, you can get charcoal gummies too for kids. So if you want your kids to take it, it's just activated charcoal. I was gonna ask you because we're on this topic. There's been a lot of theories about what potentially could be causing the fires. Do you guys have any thoughts on that? Like
arsonists?
Well, it's large. Yeah,
but we were convinced
on purpose, or
this is what happened. So my neighbors, my husband, like, they're normies. So they don't normally snap to what I think. Yeah. But we were there. So the lights went out at 3:30 and the fire didn't start till 6:20. So they thought people are accusing the electric company. And then they have like homeless people throwing Molotov cocktails and everything. But we watched it. burn from the very beginning. It's 1 mile from my house. I have these crazy pictures. I don't know if there's any way to share them, but
Yeah,
Share
Monica, I'll make you a co-host, and then you can screen share.
okay, let me see if I have them.
I'll do it anyways.
I
But
wonder, Courtney, did it run through your mind? Like, I'm so happy I left LA.
Oh yeah, yeah. So my husband always, like, when I was there, he's like, last plane out of Saigon. He kept telling me
Yeah,
that.
no, it's not good.
And now I'm
So-
like, yeah, kind
It's
of.
true. I mean, if you think of it, I specifically went under the umbrella of Trump because I'm like, they're not gonna shit in their backyard. Oh, I'm safe here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm trying to see if I've had just.
And it
Oh,
what's
I
so
think it's going to
weird
be hard for
all
that.
all the
Say it-
areas, I'll just say this really quickly. It's what's so weird is all the areas where typically the fires would be, like Griffin Park, always gets affected unscathed, and all the areas that are never touched. Like, I lived in Santa Monica for over a decade. They never have fires in Santa Monica. It's really like,
Yeah,
it's
that-
natural
that-
about this.
That was true for us too. And so, like, there's one town over, and when we were looking to buy a house here, I said, "Oh, there's these beautiful houses in Sierra Madre," and my husband said, "No, that's where the fires are. We're not going there." So we bought a house that was 100 years old. Like, obviously, the fire never gets down to where we are. But when we were watching it, we could see that the fire had started, looked like some kind of explosion, but a big flame underneath the power lines. But the thing was that my husband goes hiking up there, and so does my neighbor. Those power lines, it looks like the Eiffel Tower, but at the base of them is just concrete. There's no relay there. There's no transmitter there. And when you look at the power lines, they're all intact. So when the firefighters came by, they all said, rumor has it, it's a fire bug. So we all thought it was very windy that night. It was very high up to get up there. And we're like, obviously, this looks like a professional job that was meant to blame the electric company. As I talked to people, I spent a lot of time up there, especially with the people who stayed behind. They're kind of the more rugged types. And so I was trusting what their opinions were, because these were people who had the audacity to stay. They understood it, and I don't know, has some sense about the physical world. And I said, like, do you think somebody could have started? They said, well, bums live up there, but it started right at the base of those things. And I'm thinking,
bums.
how? Yeah, how could it be? But someone I know said they saw, and could not reproduce it, they said it was taken down, a picture of the power lines swaying. I don't know if metal can sway, but swaying, and the lines getting so close together that they arced.
Wow.
And that caused the sparks that erupted in flames. But I said, absolutely not. No way. There's only one thing up there. It can't have been two. But I went to it, and there are actually two. But I never saw that. So I don't know. My focus, like my anger, was from the fact that, like, I think there's this, what my producer calls weaponized negligence. So they're not clearing the brush. They're using environmental reasons not to access certain sources of water.
They've been doing it so long. Yeah.
And they obviously are up to something, because they keep pushing this idea that we're incompetent because lesbians run the fire department, and the lesbian saved my house. So I'm like, I don't know about what that person is doing or not doing, but it's very hard to sell the country or anybody anymore this incompetence on the part of government. I mean, just the fact that our airplanes, with certain exceptions, which I think are fishy, for 15 years, there's been no fatality on a U.S. run commercial airline, with a couple of exceptions, which I absolutely think were false flags or whatever. The government isn't incompetent, and I think they generate the DEI stuff to make it look like it is incompetent now, or use environmental things to say, hey, like, we couldn't do this. But I feel like there's a white paper somewhere that says, certain areas you will let burn. I have a white paper that Yemen is a place that they were, like, experimenting with a failed state, you know, and then it happens, and you're not probably going to find that paper, but I think there are
Well,
places.
there is a white paper that says that LA will be a smart city by 2028, and they're hosting the Olympics, the Summer Olympics there. And it does seem a little bit like Lahaina, which is also slated to be a smart city.
Lahaina, LA.
Yep.
They were certainly ready for it. So there's people immediately saying like Altadena is a poor place, because it is. It was like very mixed economically and racially. Let's just wipe it
now, though.
What?
Altadena has been quite gentrified over the past 10 years. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's divided. So my side has a lot of nice, not like McMansions. They're old places. I mean, my house is on the small side, but it's old and it's really nice. It's on a half an acre, which is a lot in LA County.
Yeah.
But on the other side of like the west side are the small houses that were historically Black. And they're saying, why didn't we get the same evacuation order as the east side? And I'm like, yeah, I get that, except for the east side's where the fire was, you know? And then it moved, like nobody expected it to go around like that, just the way the wind and everything. And it just, then the west side got absolutely wiped. It's amazing. You see this picture, it's like this, and there's literally 9,000 red houses and just little Black ones around the edges. The red is total destruction and Black is like unharmed. My house is one of the few that's just been damaged but not destroyed.
You know, the thing, before I found out that the house caught on fire, I was thinking a lot about you, and I was like, well, on one hand, that's bittersweet, right? Because you're gonna wake up, it's like, oh, hello, scorched land.
Yeah, I live on the moon. And my husband was like, well, we're never moving because you cannot sell a house. And in the beginning, it was Mars. He was like, we live on Mars because the sky was orange. The sky was orange, and even the next day, and then now it's the moon. But it's fine. We like the house, but it's got, you know, we lost all our equity for sure until they start building the McMansions, and then maybe it comes back.
Well, that's the thing. I was thinking, well, then what if you were standing and then you're going to have to deal with all this construction?
I know.
Like on the PCH, supposedly they're no longer allowed to build. Was this one.
I'm not surprised.
House, but they will no longer be able to build along the PCH.
I was wondering if that was going to be an agenda item. There are a lot of agenda items they're using, and it was very uncool of Gavin Newsom to be basically rubbing his hands together about it.
But I just feel like as Brett Weinstein said, that it's a phoenix if you can, it's a republic if you can phoenix it. It seems to be the theme. You have to burn it down to build back better. Right?
Oh yeah, it's like a bomb hit. And I understand. Like I've been saying that for Gaza, for Syria. Right. I don't know Ukraine. Like I haven't. I'm not. Don't have a picture of it, but. Is it flattened?
Ukraine is slated to be the central hub for the AI World Society. Like they keep saying, and they keep using that excuse. They say that it was decimated by the war. Yeah. We have to rebuild Ukraine. So
really worse than decimated, like absolutely flattened. Like that's the way it looked like in my immediate vicinity. It looks like a bomb hit. And when I get out of where I live and see that, like, as soon as you cross over into Pasadena, it's not like that. And I think to myself, the only difference really is that it's not the entire country. Like I can only imagine when the entire country, because now like we're struggling to find a place to live, and it's fine. Like I'm not looking for sympathy, but I'm just saying I can see the problems with displacing 15,000 families. Imagine a million, you know, it's really crazy. And they do it.
Hello, here's the FEMA camps. It's all ready for you. Been waiting. Walk on in.
I think Trump said he's getting rid of FEMA. Yeah, I don't know what that's.
Sorry, Ricky, I didn't see your note. I know where I didn't mean to go on.
No, it's okay. No. I mean, I'm obviously always very flexible with the time, but there was rumors that FEMA was going to be defunded or something like that. Yeah. Obviously, pulling out of the WHO. We went through like all the positive things that have happened since he. Since he's got in office, Fauci, removing his detail.
It's been a lot of focus on the negative. So I do think we need to, acknowledge that there looks like some positive.
Yes. Well, Sorry about Ross Ulbricht. Did we talk about Ross Ulbricht?
Yeah, we mentioned Ross. Yeah, well, the thing is like, and I do understand everybody's skepticism of like, okay, is this a trap? But I'm like, if Ron Paul was president and he did all these things, wouldn't we be celebrating all these things? Like, I don't understand like why we can't. It doesn't mean that you're like a Trumper or we're going to be wearing MAGA hats, but I think we can acknowledge that these are all good things, and not just good things. These are all good things that nobody else who has run for president in our lifetime would have done. Like,
Exactly.
let's just be honest. I don't see anybody who has run for president even acknowledging these issues publicly and entertaining them. For him to like
in any
already,
other country,
really, yeah.
anywhere,
Yeah.
except for maybe Milei or whatever. But
Yeah. So, I mean, and it's funny because I feel I was hoping, I actually emailed Whitney. I was hoping she'd show up today because I know she's been going back and forth with a lot of people on Twitter, in regards to like, I do like what she does. It's like, okay, be excited, but understand like, okay, Trump, and we've done on the show where like we talk about like, hey, Trump was also behind Operation Warp Speed. I'm like, that's true, but he was also I'm not sure if he was president in the previously that he would mandate the vaccine that he was a part of. And it shows that when he gave all the military people their jobs back and back pay for, so it's like he is a bit of a flip-flopper. Sometimes he flips in our direction, sometimes he flips in in another direction. But when when he does something positive, I think there's nothing wrong with being excited about that. And so, I'm not a huge fan of like just completely blackpilling. And I do believe like we struggle to admit that he is different. In past episodes of the show, anytime I say that, people are like, well, he's just like everybody. And I'm like, he's not the perfect option, but he is a better option.
I agree. And I'm very frustrated with the constant black pill. And it's like if you encourage or support anything that he has done, you're suddenly pinned as like a Trump worshiper. And I mean, the big thing that people keep talking about is how he's rolling in the technocracy. Now, if anybody has been screaming from the rooftops about the technocracy, that is me. I've gone through the history of the technocracy, which is well over a century. By the way, we have blueprints well over a century. And I would actually argue that no, the technology wasn't there, but the vision is millennia old. So when they tell me like that, because I'm not, like pointing all the fingers at him for that somehow I'm worshiping him, my reaction is, well, that's kind of ironic because these plans precede him by so long. And if you think one man, and I'm not saying we shouldn't voice our concerns with it, I continue to voice my concerns with the technocracy. But if you think one man is going to, derail all of these plans and, completely revamp everything, then that's a lot more worship than I have in any one human. So kind of ironic to me, but that's what I'm seeing. And I think that the demoralization, that's the first stage in a color revolution. So I think it's really important that we can acknowledge good things. We support the good things. We encourage them to go further with the good things that we want to see happen. That's part of self-governance, right? Is making our voice heard. That doesn't mean that we ignore, some of the not so good thing, the insidious agendas that are being rolled out, some of the horrible appointments that he's made. I think all of those things you can do both. And I just don't know why it has to be so Manichean. It's all black, it's all white, it's not. And I agree with you. I do think he has shown through his past track record and through just even these past few days, this week that he's been in office now, that he is different. Does that mean that, he's a savior and he's going to save us all? No, it doesn't. But I do think he's taking action that nobody else would even dare to do. So
I mean,
think it's important to have a sense of skeptical optimism when dealing with Trump. And I agree with what y'all said earlier. I think when he does something good, you need to acknowledge it and you need to support it. Personally, I think he's a scorpion. I don't trust him, just like the old scorpion and frog. Time will tell, and I could be very wrong, and hopefully I am. I call him Orange Jesus because I think that he is both a Judas goat and a false prophet. And what my intuition is telling me right now with these directive orders, which I support many of them, by the way, is a way to distract the people, get everybody eyes focused on these nice orders, thinking he's going to be the savior. Because you have to face it, most people aren't like us. Most people can't see the forest from the trees or use basic critical thinking. So they're going to follow this and they're going to start worshiping him. But at the same time, you have to remember who he is and what his past is. And more importantly, and I'll just sum it up with this. By the way, Ricky, thanks for letting me come on. You are known by the company that you keep. In 2019, Kushner and Pompeo went to the Bilderberg meeting group. And all of us here know what it is. Anybody out there that doesn't know what it is the who's who of globalism. Now let's come forward to his present administration. J.D. Vance is a full-fledged member, been to multiple meetings. Peter Thiel is on the steering committee for the Bilderberg meeting, which means that he is so far in the belly of the beast he can tickle the sphincter. So ultimately, I think that you have to be very skeptical. You have to look at this with a skeptical eye, and you have to use critical thinking and not get caught up in the political theater or the clown show, in my opinion. That's what's happening right now, because what happens is when people get caught up in the clown show, they look at who's on stage in the theater and they think, oh, that's all there is. And they don't for 1 minute think about the director, the producer, the playwright, the people that actually control the narrative which the people are seeing on stage. So.
No, so this is where I would push back a little bit, because people have been saying, throughout the years I've debated many people on my own show, the Ripple Effect podcast. Anytime somebody would entertain the idea of like voting mattered, I'd kind of laugh at it, and I'm like, does it really? I'm like, it's everybody. It doesn't matter who gets in office. It's the same lobbyists. It's the same, military industrial complex, big pharma, who are basically controlling policy and the direction of government. But most of the time, the evidence proves that I'm right, because whoever gets in office, nothing changes. This is the first time that like somebody got in office and it wasn't just rhetoric. Like things are actually happening. Things that, we thought would never happen in our lifetime. Like, talking about declassifying the JFK, MLK, Malcolm X, all the documents, just over and over again. I mean, we've talked about over and over again, like all these things. And so to me, it's like, it's not just a puppet show and we're falling for it. Like, no, the puppet show is coming to life, and it's
changing. It's changing. Like
it's
one
changing.
little example is I listened to him. He was signing some of the EOs and he had a whole bunch of press around him. And he actually sat there and answered. Well, I don't know if he was sitting. He was answering all their questions. Like if after you've been in Canada for a while and you hear these politicians, they don't answer a fucking thing. It's useless rhetoric constantly. He answered all their questions, no matter what they threw at him. He answered it. And sometimes he said he didn't know. And sometimes he was a little verbose and he was a little bit egotistical, but he answered them all in a genuine way. So whether he's like, exaggerating or lying, I don't know, but this is changing. The way he's going to go out and be out there in the public, saying things and putting himself out there for people to either cut apart or to praise. Like this is new. I agree with you, Ricky. And you too, Courtney. I think we have to celebrate the wins. And I don't think this is all theater. Like he is hated and he is a loose cannon and they're scared shitless. That's truly, I think that's what, and I don't know whether it's, it's going to, really play out or not in our favor, but it seems to be there's some really good things. I mean, look at us in Canada, where half of Canada wants to come down in the States. And I mean, I'm one of them because I'm so fed up of paying all these carbon taxes and all this bullshit up here that's happening. It's very hard to make a living.
That's been really interesting talking to Canadians, because you would think a lot of them would be very opposed to this idea of having this, North American Union potentially happening. And a lot of them that I've spoken to have said, no, we actually want, if it's really going to be a, Republican representative government, we'd like to be a part of that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a huge change. That's a huge change in mindset. And so I feel like the one encouraging thing that you can see from just hearing that shift, because typically you would hear some of Western Canada talk that way, but now I'm hearing more and more Canadians, because I talk to a lot of Canadians who do share this sentiment. And this may be just kind of sentimental of me, but I'd like to think that we exported more than just like really bad art and CIA propaganda, that maybe there's been a little bit of exportation of this concept of liberty. I'm not saying America is perfect. I think we've done a lot. I'm not a huge fan of our government, our whole military industrial complex. There's a lot to complain about, but the concept, the idea of America, what it was founded upon, the Declaration of Independence, that concept that we were endowed with, from our inalienable rights from our creator, the right to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. These are concepts that have never been codified in writing anywhere else. And I think if we could export those ideas, that would give me a little sense of, pride in America. But
I'd like
Well,
to.
another thing, sorry to play devil's advocate, Graham, but just to go back to what you were saying, there is a lot of talk, and you have said that a lot of Canadians now want to join America. When you're looking at globalism, it's regionalization. And when you look at the North American Union, it's Mexico, the States, and Canada.
we
for
all
the
know
longest,
I'm for it. It's
yeah,
like I
we
don't
all
care.
know the
It's better than the
regionalized.
broken Canada. I mean,
I
it
know
really
you.
is like
I know
it's-
y'all do.
We all know the Club of Rome document. Yeah,
Oh yeah,
regionalized, adaptive.
that's why I
liberal.
learned it.
Yeah.
I learned it from you, Courtney. I learned it from all of you out here. So thank you for doing what you do. But it just comes back to another thing. You have a lot of Canadians now wanting to become America. Whether it'll happen or not, that's a discussion down the road. But it goes back to Edward Bernays, excuse me, and propaganda. If used properly, you don't have to sell a product to your market. They will come to you and demand that you sell the product.
I want to
to them.
offer something as someone who grew up in Montreal, Canada, and we considered ourselves as Canadian. I mean, Montreal is very much a hodgepodge. I never was asked what color are you until I came to America, but our outlook is we kind of made fun of Americans, and I would under the Rona, because surprisingly Canadians are so nice that it really like went a step closer to communism from socialism, that also would warm up the idea of joining forces and being, because there are a lot of Canadians who are allied with Trump. And even though I say everything's fake and gay, I definitely would choose Orange Man bad, and I am right across the pond from Mar-a-Lago for a reason. I mean, it's beautiful here. There's old street lights. They're not going to put LED. I mean, there's a reason why I came here. So it's beautiful, and the people, the conservatives are more, I mean, the left has lost its mind in a lot of ways.
I'm curious if we can get the "everything is fake and gay" shirts made, because I feel like that shirt would be it would be, a hot seller, I believe.
Yeah, it
May
might
I
be.
say that I had an agency that I hired that literally put it in writing after working for me for 7 months that I'm offensive to the gay community for saying fake and gay. And I was like, well, I'm the writer and I know entomology, and I'll just let you know that it comes from the 12th century Germanic origin and gay full of mirth and showy. Actually, the homos should be upset that word was co-opted. So I'm not bound to the fucking virus of wokeism. Like,
I love it. Well, let's speaking of fake and gay, nobody on this show is fake or gay, I don't think. Well, I mean, at least I know the first part. At the second one, we don't get that personal on the show. But if you guys want to tell people, let's start plugging what you guys have coming up. Any past recent work that you've done that you want people to check out, any upcoming shows or work that you want people to check out, please plug anything and everything.
I have a show coming up, the only show I did since this fire, with Gabriel Custodiet and his partner, Urban Hacker. And we were talking about they have a AI resistance workshop. So we spent 2 hours talking about like the practical aspects of it and also what to be afraid of. That was a welcome relief, a good distraction. So that's coming up across my channels. So you can find my stuff anywhere at the Monica Perez Show. Thank you.
I'm Courtney Turner. You can find all my work at CourtneyTurner.com. I spell my name like CourtneyTurner.com. So like Courtenay. And that's probably the best place to find all of my shows, all of my work. I've done quite a few presentations lately. I've been diving into this thing called Game B, which is not new at all, but it's definitely like ramping up. And I think it's because a lot of the technologies are kind of catching up to the vision that they had laid out. But yeah, so you can check out some of that. And I started a Substack about 5 months ago, so I'm in the process of kind of structuring that. And yeah, we took a little bit of a break. I'm launching a product, so hopefully next week the website will be up for that. And if any of you are interested, I could talk to all of you about possible affiliates for the product too. So hopefully we'll have the website up next week, though.
Can you tell us what the product is, or not yet? You want to keep it secret?
Can I? Yeah. It's so the website's going to be Glow with Tallow. It's a tallow product. So we're doing skincare, and right now we have 2 ones that we're beta testing. So it's all natural, very high quality ingredients. So it's what?
I'm interested to sell it on Honey Colony.
Awesome. I was totally thinking you would be. That's awesome. Okay, so we have 2 right now. One is it's whipped tallow. So I know a lot of people are probably familiar with tallow skincare products, but what I hear from everybody that they love is the texture of this because it's like hand whipped. And we have one that's with Manuka honey, and it's like medical grade UMF 20 plus, and it's really raw. Like it's never been heated, never been treated.
That's
Full
like
prep.
such a natural thing for Honey Colony for that salmon.
Yeah, it's honey. Yes. So, and then the other one's with castor oil, and then we might mix the 2. And we're experimenting with different fragrances right now. But yeah,
I could definitely help launch that if I do a newsletter to like 50,000 people.
Yes.
Let's talk about that.
That's what makes the show special.
Yay!
Yeah.
Awesome.
Miriam,
What's it called? Sorry.
Oh, the website's going to be called Glow with Tallow.
Okay.
Glow with Tallow.
and Miriam, I know you Canadians are very polite, so you might not want to go next. So I'll just, while you got our attention, you want to let us know about your...
I would love that. So my book is finally being printed. It's not published. My book, Operation George Floyd, a multi-layered psyop exposed. And unfortunately, I just found out that I need another $1,300 to get it out to the customers. So it's like a never ending, like delay. But it's, it's been finished since last May. So that is available on miriammunane.com/George Floyd book. I will find the money. I'll manifest it. And people can buzz on over to honeycolony.com. I am looking for a partner because I'm basically doing the job of 5 people after those woke witches woke witches left. And I have a show, Truth Lives Here, on Fridays. This week I'm interviewing Tracy Cambert on Saint Germain, Dragons, and Ascension, because that's the direction I'm going in. And my Substack, I've started going back to my first love, which is magical realism, and doing a story based on my recent experience that dovetails into my Kundalini experience. What else? And I'm going to Anarchapulco. I cannot wait. And it just so happens that the theme is Ascend Dance, and I'm the resident dancer for the DJ. And I'm giving a talk on how to maneuver the age of Aquarius and find your soul's purpose. So I'm very excited.
And Charlie will be there. So if anybody's going.
And Dave will be there.
I will.
Oh,
I'm
Dave,
going.
that's right. Yeah,
I'm going there.
Oh, you gave away his real name. I'm kidding.
It's okay.
No, it's okay. First name's
with
good, man. Last name, I don't want to dox myself.
Nobody knows if he's fake or gay, and that his name is Dave. Those were all secrets until now.
Exactly.
Natural.
Exactly. Well, I'm straight. My name is gay. My name is gay. That came out wrong. My name is Dave. But close assimilation. So I dropped a couple bombs for y'all tonight about who I am. But no, I'm not fake. I'm not gay. I'm weird, but that's okay. Well, thanks for letting me come on here, Ricky. I always enjoy coming on here, man. I mean, I've been watching all of y'all for years. So to sit here on the same panel and just basically watch the union of the unwanted live, and every once in a while I can open my big mouth and say something. What a pleasure. What a pleasure. So my show is the Third Rail Podcast. It broadcasts live every Friday on Rumble. You can find it on the Third Rail Podcast, AM Wake Up, and TNP The New Prisoners channels. It also is goes out to the podcast wherever they're served and a bunch of other things. If you're interested in everything about the show, you can just go to my link tree. It's the Third Rail Podcast. Or you can also find me on Twitter at The Real Nature Boy or at NBN Nature Boy. So that's it. That's all, folks.
Graham, Brandon, when you guys
Sure,
want to
I'll go. Yeah, Darren's back on X, my co-host at Grimerica. His account got restored, so it was like a couple days after the inauguration. So I mean, I don't know. We are seeing signs that a bit of the censorship is getting a little bit better right now. So I mean, let's hope that stays. So we've got a couple trips coming up with Randall Carlson. We're going to the Azores to look for Atlantis. There's only like one or two spots left. That's like 12 days, I think.
Where's the Azores?
my country. That's
in
my country.
Portugal. It's like the mid-Atlantic.
Portugal. It's-
Look,
Mid-Atlantic
Graham,
rig.
I started doing research on Atlantis.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
Like I got a lot of books.
Is that
Sorry.
Is that Casey's book?
I have Casey's book, but this
Yeah.
is Steve Kershaw.
Okay.
And have you heard that there's the 21 statutes of Atlantis that I think the 10 Commandments were taken from?
Oh no, I don't think so. Yeah, send that to me.
That it was used to call Sardigon.
Okay.
Sorry, totally interrupting your.
No, that's great. I mean, there's only like one ticket, but we'll probably do another trip after that. And then there's some spots left for our the Bonneville flood tour with him in May. So you can go to contact@thecabin.com for those. But also, Miriam, I did the Comte de Saint Germain biography. You mentioned Saint Germain.
Yeah.
So that's on audio.
I'm homies with him.
Yeah, we got all audiobooks out there at adultbrain.ca, and that Saint Germain book is out there. It's pretty interesting.
What's it called?
The Secrets of Kings, a monograph of the Comte de Saint Germain.
Do you talk about the Constitution, how he supposedly helped create the?
I don't think it gets into that actually. It might touch on it a little bit. I'm trying to remember if but yeah, it's fascinating stuff. It's a bunch of books on there. We do.
What's
that?
Down. The books you guys are talking about. I don't know. The Theosophical Society in Altadena was burned down.
Right, I know that's.
Oh, I did not know
sad.
that.
I mean,
the
it's so
Basant
crazy that
Lodge?
there's no backup plan for the books. Like,
Wow.
Well, I think most of the books were digitized, but a lot of the handwritten letters, I don't think were.
right.
I'm looking into finding out how much was not digitized. A lot of them, their website is actually a great resource. They have a lot of their work is digitized, but I don't think a lot of the handwritten, those are primary sources that I would think are, to be lost is kind of tragic. Yeah.
We've got a lot of theosophy on audio right now on that website. We're doing like a weekly roundup about Canadian politics and stuff, and just showing how broken it is up here in Canada. So Darren and I still have the two podcasts going and a weekly roundup. So it's been kind of interesting getting into our own shows as opposed to just interview shows all the time. So that's about it, really. We've got a product too, though, CBD. We're selling CBD that we partnered with somebody down there. So Grimerica-CBD. So there's everything can be found at grimerica.ca. So thanks for having me on, and it's good to see you all.
Awesome. You're gonna have to come on so we can. I'd love to hear about your experience in Portugal. Well, as you know, I was born there, so
Yeah.
I'm sure you're gonna have a blast. It's a beautiful country, beautiful people. But much like Canada, the people are too nice, and that's why
Yep.
during COVID they were so heavily vaccinated and masked up because they're just too nice, and that's what happens when everybody's just like, yeah, I guess they care about our well-being, so we'll just listen. They don't really go against the grain much. So
Yeah.
I think it's a cultural issue with both countries, Canada and Portugal.
I think the Azores has some untapped mysteries.
Well, they got a pyramid. I'm sure you know about the pyramid that was like right outside the Azores, and it was below, I forget how much under sea level. So they're like, for it to be built, it must have been built, who know how many thousands of years ago. But Monica, we just missed her, Monica Perez, and it was her turn.
Oh no.
It's a Monica. Did she talk or am I?
Yeah, I think she did. She did.
Oh, she did. Okay, maybe we went to her early. Oh, so we got Brand. Oh, good. She.
Brandon's left.
Drew got a hop in the chat there. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Monica, we're glad you're safe, and thanks for hanging out. That was cool seeing you guys. Courtney, congratulations on your tallow. I actually use the whip tallow stuff because of my wife, and so we're very interested in that as well. Let's absolutely talk. Miriam,
Great.
thank you for being safe at Anarchapulco in advance. That's what we say. We don't say be safe. We just go ahead and assume it and say thank you for being safe, right? I find it more valuable. Nature Boy, cool to hang out with you, brother. Big fan, dude. This is cool to chill with you. Graham, always a damn pleasure, dude. You get cuter every time I see you, I will be honest. And Ricky, dude, can't thank you enough, man. And your country was the first to legalize drugs for everybody to plummet overdoses and the crime rate as well. And it was very
2001.
successful.
Yeah, it was 2001. They decriminalized all drugs. I had family members that would go back to Portugal, and I would tell them, I'm like, they decriminalized all things or all drugs. And they're like, no, they didn't. I was there. I didn't see anybody doing drugs on the streets. I'm like, that's because that's not what
Exactly.
happens when you decriminalize it. They just assumed that like it wasn't true because they expected the whole country to be different and have like, looking like LA, but it didn't, so it did work. I mean, obviously it's a small sample size. Culturally, it's different and whatnot. So I understand that aspect of it. But yeah, and so Brandon, don't forget to plug yourself.
Oh, well, I was going to say with the sample size in my house, it was 100% whatever my mom said don't do, I wanted to do. So, when by saying, hey, Portugal, just do whatever the hell you want, you take the stigma off of it, and I think that that's what they were playing to, the psychology, and I think it was pretty effective. I think it was interesting.
Well, and let's be honest. The reason I don't do cocaine isn't because it's illegal. Okay. I don't do cocaine because I don't want to do cocaine. Like it's not like if I really wanted to do it, I just don't do it because it's difficult to get. It's like, no, I just don't, so I think in some cases, maybe there's going to be a few examples of somebody who maybe gives something a try because it's maybe easier to get. Maybe it's possible, but I think overall, in general, I think it's positive. And like you said, you take away the sexy from it. I grew up with my parents saying like, "Hey, you want to take a sip of this? You want to try wine? Try wine. You want to try moonshine? Here, take a sip of moonshine." When I was a kid, I was like, "Ew, this is disgusting," and because my parents did it. It wasn't cool. So alcohol wasn't really ever an issue for me. Like I became a social drinker as I got older and never really felt the need to have to like dive in and get hammered. And which I did get hammered at times, but my point was that it wasn't like over the top where a good friend of mine, she came and I'll make this quick, but it's amazing that I can make anything quick, but I'll try. She grew up in a super Christian family. She's like one of many siblings. They were told at a really young age, alcohol is bad. It's it's evil. It's this and that. No. They all have addiction issues. And I remember asking her once, I'm like, how much of that addiction issues was like the fact that you were told so often, whatever you do, you don't touch this. It made you want to touch it and try even more. And I think it does become counterproductive at some point. So without a doubt.
Could not agree more, man. Yeah. And
Expanding reality.
Choose not to do drugs anymore. I'm what you call California sober. I quit drinking like 4 years ago and haven't even looked back, not even on psychedelics anymore, not interested. And I feel great, but I can, you can do anything you want, but I just,
So how do you expand reality? So you can expand it.
Expanding reality. Thank you. Great segue. Here. Give you some music for your segue. That was brilliant. So, yes, expanding reality. You guys can find it anywhere podcasts are served. Beautiful Nature Boy, and we're still on the YouTubes, all that kind of stuff. Patreon's where it's at though. Lately, we're doing hangouts, and all the bonus content is over there. Plus, there's an option on there for a measly $1 million. I will take you go-kart and mini golf for the day. I'm a fucking hang too, so that's a steal. So you guys can go check that as an option. Want to mention, though, that I do have a series of journals that I've published through our publishing house here called Redigital Publishing. I'm going to these artists are incredible. There's 10 of them out total. There's 2 mindful mornings, 2 mindful evenings, all with different cover artists. This is Janine Burgess. She did a phenomenal job on this. Incredible artist.
What's inside? Is it
so this is a system that I designed, and it's actually a daily mindfulness practice. You go through all of these different things like your 4 questions you ask yourself, you track your moon, your mantra, your reading practice, gratitude, daily, what's now and noteworthy, what you're releasing, what you're attracting. I have this whole thing, and then there's a second version to it that just came out, so it makes this at 10, and these are on Barnes & Noble and Amazon. And I hand drew all this, by the way, on an architecture table back there. So it's a hand design. This is the second version of it. It has a lot more conscious coupling area, and it's a new calendar system that this guy named Tom Sherman created, which is really interesting, incorporated in there. You can use it any way you want. It's completely customizable. And then in the back of all of these, there's little sample pages to where if you want to fill something out, you can assign all those little outer nodes to be whatever you want. There's several of these, so you can change your mind. So if you want like this little series of circles to mean something private to you that you just fill in daily and keep track of, you can. It's endless and very cool, and a massive community project on that. The ones behind me are for the creative expansion artists on the show, Expanding Reality. If you go to some of the video versions of that, we invite artists of all kinds. The little metal bird behind me is made out of little spoons and knives, made on our 300th episode. And we have artists come by, and just literally while we're sitting here talking, I'll feature an artist zoomed in on their project, working from anywhere from knitting to painting to anything really. And it's just something, instead of listening to two people talk, you got something else to look at if you want, for our kinetic listeners, as I call it. It's a really cool feature. So we have a journal series that a bunch of artists contributed to as well, and then one for writers called Introspective Expansion. A bunch of writers and authors donated their time and energy to that. Very cool series. I'm very proud of it. Like I said, through our publishing house, which we do have other people's stuff that we're publishing this year. We're very excited. So Expanding Reality, like I said, it's everywhere. And then we have the publishing stuff. And then thank you guys. This has been a blast. Ricky, again, everybody is incredible. Moving forward, it's beautiful to see. Very crazy times, guys. So just keep your wits about you. Just remain unstoppable,
Yeah, I feel positive after this episode. I feel good vibes. Yeah. So yeah, and then also Jason Burmis was here. He's an OG. Obviously, he'll go down in history in alternative media world
yeah.
for Loose Change and many other great documentaries he's done. Scott Armstrong of Rebunked News. He's also doing stuff with Grand Theft World. So definitely check him out. And then Clint Russell was here, Liberty Lockdown. And then, of course, my brothers from different mothers, Charlie Robinson, Midnight Mike, and Sam Tripoli. They can't always make it, but they're always here in spirit. So I'll put links in the show description for all this stuff. I'll put everybody who's on the show in the show description. So people, if you're listening, if you're watching, check it out. And please support everybody who comes on the show. It's a great community. They all deserve your support. And so we can keep going as a community and growing. And that's it. And then hopefully in the future, we do a full fake and gay episode where we just talk about things that are fake and gay and maybe get some shirts out. So if you want that, let us know in the comments if you guys want everything is fake. Where's Mike? Who has
I got the
sound effect? Oh, is
soundboard.
that you?
That's yeah, it's by Howard Dean. I just pulled it. I'm very proud of it. It goes from there to queefs. So we'll just go ahead and take it back to you. Go ahead.
But and thanks as always, guests. This show is special because of everybody who takes time out of their busy schedules to come on and chat with us, and never know who else is going to be on and what we're going to talk about. But you guys are always willing to come on and support the work that we do. So I can't thank you guys enough. Enjoy the rest of your night. Thank you so much. I'll keep you guys in the loop for the next one.
Thank you.
Thank you. And people listening, the show is on YouTube, but these shows are always uploaded to our Rumble channel. So if you want to put some faces to the voices, check out our Rumble channel. You'll be able to find them there. I'll send you guys links to the video and audio after it's up. It's all open source, so feel free for you guys to share it on your platforms if you would like. So that's it. I guess we'll see you guys on the next one, hopefully.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Got it, Ricky.
Thank you.